7 bone-chilling true Alaskan horror stories that haunt you until midnight. When the sun dips behind the horizon in Alaska, shadows stretch long across the frozen ground, cloaking secrets so dark they can chill the very marrow in your bones. This is more than just another night, it's a night painted in terror, where every whisper of wind carries with it an echo of the unknown. In the remote corners of this vast, icy expanse, hidden stories creep out of the woods like phantoms, ready to ensnare the unsuspecting. Somehow, it feels like every glint of moonlight hides a lurking danger, every snapping twig heralds a story that could turn even the brave to cowards. In 1990, a group of friends decided to push their limits. They ventured deep into Kenai Fjords National Park, hoping for a thrilling weekend of adventure. They expected nature's isolation to bring them closer together, but they had no idea what they really beckoned. Frostbitten winds whispered across the glacier, a symphony interrupted by their laughter, until it wasn't. They stumbled upon a cabin, weathered and overgrown, shrouded in mist. As they inched closer, the door creaked open, revealing not just an empty shell, but remnants of someone who might still be inside. The smell of decay hung heavy in the air, and fear gripped their souls like a vice. Eyes wide, the group stepped inside, every creak in the floorboards reminding them of what they were trespassing upon. There are places in Alaska where the auroras dance wildly, but in this cabin, everything seemed wrong, too dark, too still. The chill wasn't just cold, it crept into their bones, an icy finger of dread that gnawed at their nerves. Was that movement behind them? A fleeting shadow? They whispered to each other, but words turned to mumbles as the place seemed alive, as though the walls themselves had a pulse. Somewhere in their midst, they heard a low growl, deep and sinister. It rumbled like thunder rolling over the mountains. Suddenly, the laughter turned to panic. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference, let's connect. Back in the cabin, the friends turned to flee, but the door slammed shut with a bang that echoed through the frostbitten air. They couldn't see it, but they felt the darkness closing in, a suffocating blanket of dread. Desperation bubbled in their throats, and they pounded against the door, but it wouldn't budge. All around them, the shadows seemed to twist and writhe, morphing into shapes that clawed at their sanity. The growl grew louder, transforming from a warning to a promise. What could be lurking in the corners, anticipating their next move? And what lay beyond the cabin, in the pitch-black wilderness? Just when they thought all was lost, a light flickered through the frost-covered window, a distant beam, flickering like a dying star. It beckoned them, or was it merely another trick of the shadows? Would they dare to find out what horror awaited them outside? As the friends huddled together, hearts racing in frantic rhythm, the flickering light called to them like a siren's song. Each pulse illuminated the walls of the creaking cabin, revealing the warped photo frames, faded wallpaper, and a table stacked with long-forgotten relics. The air felt charged with anticipation, each breath a laborious effort against the stench of decay that clung to their throats. Maybe it's a way out. One of them gasped, the hope igniting a flicker of courage within the group. They surged toward the window, drawn to the light in spite of the growling that seemed to encircle them like a predator stalking its prey. But each step felt heavier, as if the icy tendrils of fear were weighing them down. Wait! Another friend shouted, eyes wide. What if it's a trap? What if whatever's in here wants us to go out there? The growl deepened, echoing off the walls, solidifying their terror. The decision hung in the air like a suspended breath: stay and face the unknown or risk the chilling wilderness outside. With a shared, silent understanding, they edged toward the window, peering out into the abyss. The light pulsed again, brighter this time, revealing the outline of something waiting just beyond their grasp. A figure? An apparition? They couldn't tell, the chilling wind obscured its shape, shrouding it in mystery. Let us go. With a sudden surge of adrenaline, they finally pushed the window open. It was stiff but creaked wide enough for them to escape. As they climbed through, the growl transformed into a shadowy laughter that filled the cabin, leaving them with a jarring sense of foreboding as they fled. The biting cold hit them like a slap, cutting through layers of clothing. The night was more alive than ever, the wind howled with a haunting chorus. The light still flickering ahead seemed to lead them into the dark heart of the forest. What if it's a ghost? Another friend muttered, squinting into the dark, trying to catch sight of the source. Answering him, the light dimmed, as if in reaction to their doubt. Silence. The leader of the group whispered sharply as they pressed forward. The whisper of snow beneath their boots seemed deafening as shadows danced around them, creating an eerie play of light and dark. Suddenly, they heard it again, a low growl, this time closer, more determined. It echoed through the trees, sending shivers down their spines. What had they stumbled into? Were they unwitting players in a game of survival, or just prey caught in a game of shadows? With the light still calling, they plunged forward, trepidation clawing at their minds. The woods felt alive, a menacing heartbeat matching the rhythm of their fearful breaths. Then it happened. A flash erupted behind them, the cabin. Flames ignited, painting the night sky with a sickening glow. It was consuming the place, but also something else, something they sensed, lurking in the flames. Run! Somebody screamed, the urgency forcing them to sprint toward the beckoning light. But was it a safety, or was it just another deceptive dance of the night? The darkness pressed in, every footfall echoing back like a countdown. Straining their ears, they began to hear whispers on the wind, names. Their own. Did that beast know them? What horrible recognition lay in wait? As they stumbled deeper into the woods, panic began to claw at their thoughts, each shadow morphing into a sympathetic figure. Were they being hunted? Could the tales of terror finally be closing in on them? They had to find out, or perish in the secrets of the night. But as they turned to face wherever the beckoning light led them, a new growl emerged, different this time. It was a sign that whatever chased them was far more sinister than they could comprehend. What awaited them at the end of this perilous journey? Would the light lead them to salvation, or was it a gateway to greater horrors lurking just beyond sight? They ran, their breath forming clouds against the biting cold. The woods were alive with a symphony of eerie sounds, a rustle here, a snap there, as if the very trees were whispering secrets of danger hidden in their shadows. Each heartbeat reminded them how fragile life felt, and every breath tasted metallic with fear. Keep moving! Shouted the leader, eyes darting between the flickering light ahead and the darkness swallowing the trees around them. As they sprinted forward, the glimmer illuminated an opening in the thicket, a clearing. With desperation fueling their speed, they burst into the open space. But even as they crossed into the light, their sense of relief was short-lived. The laughter, deep and taunting, echoed all around them, almost mocking their escape. Look! One of the friends gasped, pointing to the light flickering at the edge of the clearing. It was a lantern, its flame dancing wildly against the wind, casting erratic shadows that twisted on the ground like tortured souls desperately trying to escape. Should we approach it? Whispered another, unsure. No. The leader's voice was firm, almost shaking. Remember what we've seen. It can't be safe. Nothing is here for us. As if on cue, the laughter morphed into a growl, deep and guttural, shaking the leaves on the trees. A cold chill gripped their hearts as they turned, realizing they had given in to the terror of the night. They were being hunted. Where do we go? Panic surged through their blood like ice. Back! Shouted the leader, pointing back toward the path they had just come from. But before they could turn, shapes emerged from the shadows, blurred figures with glinting eyes, hungry and menacing. Adrenaline surged through them as the crowd of distorted silhouettes surrounded the clearing. Keys to their survival flipped dramatically between fight or flight. But before they could react, the light from the lantern flickered out, plunging them into darkness. Run! Screamed someone, breaking the trance. They darted for the edges of the clearing, twisting between the trees, only dimly aware of their surroundings. They weren't alone anymore, the shadows were alive, diving at them like predators stalking their next meal. The growls morphed into whispers, words like curses falling on their ears. Names, familiar names, echoed around them. No, no. One of them shouted, shaking their head, trying to dispel the voices. Don't listen. The leader shouted. Keep moving. They raced through the trees, branches clawing at their faces, sharp as knives. Fear turned to frantic desperation as they stumbled, tripping over roots, fighting against the rising tide of dread flooding through them. Then ahead a flash. A distant glow shimmered once more through the veil of trees. The urgency fueled them. What if this was the escape they sought? They pushed through the underbrush, ignoring the cuts and bruises, followed only by the haunting howls that promised doom. When they finally reached the new light source, their hearts dropped. It was another cabin, a mirror of the one they fled, its windows dark and unwelcoming. Should we go inside? One friend whispered, fear cracking their voice. We can't. Another protested. It's just as dangerous. But they were breathless and desperate. The shadows crept up behind them, closing in with insatiable hunger. Before they could decide, the cabin door creaked open slowly. A figure stood in the doorway, cloaked in darkness but unmistakably humanoid. It beckoned them forward, arms wide open in a sinister greeting, as though it had been expecting them all along. Fear gripped them anew. Was this the salvation they sought, or a deeper descent into the abyss? As hesitation filled their minds, the laughing growl returned, reverberating through the trees, making it clear they had only one option left. Would they dare enter that dark void staring back at them, or would the shadows behind them claim their souls first? Heart pounding, they stumbled toward the cabin, the dark figure still motioning them closer. Their instincts screamed to flee, but the shadows were just a breath away, clawing and scratching at their heels. Go, the leader shouted, propelling the others forward. The door hung ajar like an invitation to an unholy gathering. They squeezed through, the muffled sound of their harried breaths filling the cramped space. As the last one crossed the threshold, the door slammed shut behind them with a resonating thud that echoed in their chests. Darkness closed in, thick and suffocating. A single flicker ignited in the center of the room, a crude candle sitting on a splintered table, illuminating the faces of the terrified group. Eyes darting around, they took in the eerie decor. Tattered old photos lined the walls, faces twisted in pain and grief, trapped in the entropy of time. What is this place? Someone whispered, the tremor in their voice stark amidst the heavy silence. I don't know, the leader replied, his brow furrowed. But it feels wrong. We shouldn't be here. In that moment, dread cocooned them, enveloping every ounce of courage. They were not safe, this was only another layer of the nightmare. They could almost feel it, the pulse of evil, thrumming under the floorboards, vibrating through their bones. Suddenly, the candle extinguished, plunging them into darkness again. Panic flared as they fumbled, dutifully stretching hands out into the void, desperate for a sense of solid ground. The whispers returned, louder now, swirling around them like a storm, taunting their sanity. Names, familiar names binding them back to memories of safety, now twisted into something sinister. Stay together. The leader barked, trying to assert control, voice dripping with authority and fear. Just then, a shuffling noise echoed from the corner. The friends froze, tension thickening the air like fog. They turned slowly, eyes adjusting. There, in the dim light, a figure materialized from the darkness. It was another human, his face gaunt, eyes hollow and sunken. You shouldn't have come here, he rasped, voice like gravel being ground underfoot. You don't belong to this world anymore. The laughter erupted again, loud and cascading, as if the cabin itself were mocking their plight. The man, shaking now, reached out, pleading. They'll come for you. They always do. What do you mean? A friend coughed, stepping back in horror. Who? What are you talking about? But as the words slipped into the stale air, the shadows lengthened, slithering across the floor toward them, eager and ravenous. The newcomer recoiled, whispering, "The ones you feared a darker force than you can imagine. They feast on fear." Suddenly, the wooden walls began to breathe, expanding and contracting as if alive. The air thickened oppressive and suffocating, a surge of darkness tried to take hold. The group huddled, panic bubbling inside them. "Get out!" the leader roared, pushing against the grotesque chill wrapping around him. "We have to leave now." They dove towards the door, but it wouldn't budge. It felt as if it was cemented into the frame, sealing them in. A scream split the air as one of their own fell to the floor, writhing in terror, swallowed by shadows creeping from the corners. "Help!" she shrieked. But the darkness enveloped her, eyes shining cruelly, hungry for her light. Time fractured, seconds stretched into hours in their minds as they clawed at the door, despair rising like bile in their throats. How could they escape? Was this the end? Outside, the woods waited, silent except for the haunting residual laughter as everything grew dimmer, consumed by the darkness inside and out. The unearthly grip tightened, squeezing hope from their hearts like a vice that in the stillness that followed, the question hung heavy and dreadful, echoing through the suffocating silence: would they make it out alive or join the shadows in endless torment? The group huddled fiercely, their bodies pressed together like lifeboats in a raging sea. The frantic pounding of their hearts reverberated through the air, mixing with the laughter that twisted and whirled around them. The echoes rattled against the walls, as if mocking their desperate hope for escape. "Stop panicking!" the leader shouted, his voice cracking against the chaos. He tried to rally them, but his bravado crumbled under the weight of despair. They were trapped, and time slipped through their fingers like sand going dry. "Look!" one of the friends pointed, eyes dilated in fear. A faint glow flickered at the far end of the cabin, a sickly green light that pulsed like a heartbeat. It called to them, filled with a strange magnetism that felt both tempting and dangerous. "Should we go toward it?" another friend asked, hesitant and bewildered. Each word fell flat in the heavy air, laden with dread. The gaunt man's figure shook his head violently. "Don't! You'll unleash them. They crave the light. They'll use you." But his warning was swallowed by the shadows as they wove together, forming a tapestry of swirling darkness. Just then, the girl who had fallen began to rise, still ensnared by the creeping shadows. Her eyes were glazed, lifeless, but her mouth opened wide, the words spilling forth in a voice not her own. "They will take what they want," she croaked, her voice echoing with a chorus of distant whispers. "You'll be nothing more than a vessel, a lighthouse for their hunger." The friends recoiled, instinct pulling them back. A power surged through the cabin, and their friend's body jerked violently, darkness snaking through her veins. A new scream tore through the night, crashing against the walls, ricocheting in their minds. "Help her!" one shouted, but how could they when every instinct was screaming at them to run? The leader fought back the rising bile in his throat. The shadows lurked, waiting, hungry. They darted toward the faint green glow, hearts racing against the encroaching horror. What existed there? Was it a path to freedom or an even more terrifying fate? The gaunt man lunged after them, nails extended like claws, screaming, "You're fools!" As they drew closer, the green light grew, revealing a warped mirror standing against the far wall. Its surface flickered, images swirling, faces trapped in terror, mouths open in silent screams. The light warped their own reflections, transforming familiar features into grotesque versions of themselves, twisted and dark. "What is this?" one whispered, horrified. "It's not just a mirror," the leader realized, voice trailing off. "It's a portal we can't look." But it was too late. Entranced by the surreal vision, they stepped closer. As if sensing their fear, the portal began to pulse violently, a whirlpool of darkness sucking them in. "Look away!" the leader barked, but the pull was relentless, a vice around their minds. The gaunt man wailed, "They're coming. They already smell your fear." In the chaos, the walls pulsed again, shaking like a living thing. The cabin felt alive, eager to seal them away forever. They were seconds away from losing themselves entirely. With a final desperate scream, the leader lunged toward the mirror, determined to break the cycle. "We need to fight," he yelled, drowning out the cacophony of fear. But just as his hand reached the cool surface, something erupted from the portal, a dark, writhing hand grasping for him, desperate to pull him into the nightmare. "Don't let go," a voice cried as everything spiraled into chaos. The last fleeting image burned in their minds, shadows dancing wildly, laughter merging with screams, and the mirror shimmering like a dark promise. What awaited them on the other side? Would they break through the grip of terror or surrender to the darkness forever? The question hung unanswered, heavy as lead, as the world around them began to dissolve. The moment the hand reached for him, time froze. The air thickened, heavy with dread, as the leader felt the chill seep into his bones. The dark fingers brushed against his wrist, cold enough to make him gasp. Panic surged through him. It was a grip of inevitability, a promise of despair. "Let go!" someone shouted. The words cut through the chaos, a lifeline. But the grip only tightened, and he felt the very essence of his being tugged toward that wretched mirror. "Help!" he cried, desperation threading its way into his voice as he felt himself teetering on the brink of the abyss. The others were frozen, gazes transfixed on the shimmering portal, caught in the trance of their own fear. "Don't you see?" The gaunt man's voice came, raw and urgent. "It wants you. It needs your fear to survive." The leader's pulse thundered in his ears as he struggled against the pull, every instinct screaming to let go, yet some part of him fought to hold on. The images swirling in the mirror shifted grotesquely, showing glimpses of their lives twisted into horrors yet to unfold. It was a mockery of their memories, their triumphs, transformed into chilling reminders of their deepest regrets. "I refuse to be a part of this," he screamed, summoning every ounce of determination. With one last surge of will, he ripped his arm back, freeing himself from its icy grasp. The darkness recoiled, contracting around the mirror as if injured. The cabin shook violently, the walls trembling, a furious protest against the disruption. The air crackled with tension, strands of panic radiating from the others, who still stood entirely entranced by the horrific spectacle within the glass. "Look away. We have to look away," he shouted again, urgency clawing at his throat. But it felt like yelling into a void. The others seemed lost in the nightmare, surrounded by laughter that scratched at their sanity. The girl who had fallen now raised her head, her features contorting into a horrific mask. "Join us," she hissed, voice thick with darkness. For a heartbeat, silence punctuated the air. Then, the darkness surged once more, particles ripping through the cabin as if fueled by the very fear that had once gripped them all. The leader lunged toward his friends, desperation lighting a fire in his belly. "We have to break the spell." He grabbed the closest friend by the shoulders and shook him violently. "Snap out of it. Look away." Slowly, the friend blinked, confusion dawning in his eyes. The gaunt man clawed at his own face, shrieking, "It's feeding. You need to break your connection." One by one, the others began to shake off the weight of the darkness, their eyes widening as they blinked at the retreating horrors of the mirror. The laughter started to fade, replaced by soft whispers of regret, cries for help, yet, the moment of clarity was fleeting. The green glow intensified, illuminating the corners of the cabin with a sickening brightness. The distortion of the mirror shimmered ominously, a beast stirring from slumber. "Run!" the leader shouted, and in a flurry of motion, they pushed away from the portal, tearing themselves from the grasp of the shadows that clung to them like cobwebs. But as they stumbled back, a new horror emerged. From the mirror, a figure stepped forth, not just a hand, but an entire silhouette, weaving through the shards of reality. It was fluid, unsettling, and with each step, the room chilled further. "What do you want?" one of them screamed, sinking to the floor, fear anchoring her down. The shape paused, a grotesque head twisting to regard them with hollow, starless eyes. You've drawn my attention, now you must play my game, it said, voice a rumbling echo, vibrating through the bones of the cabin. As the reality began to warp once more, at the edge of the spiraling chaos, a second figure materialized, even darker than the first, as if forged from the very essence of the nightmare. What now? Another friend gasped, breathless as shadows coiled around their feet, pulling them closer toward the impending doom. The leader fought back a scream. They might have escaped. One terror, but now they were on the brink of a new game, where their lives would hang by a thread, played out under the gaze of unseen horrors. What twisted fate awaited them in this new nightmare? Would they become unwilling players in a game of life and death, trapped forever in a world of ash and despair? The cabin trembled, a dark heartbeat echoing as the shadows closed in. Panic bubbled inside the cabin, thick and suffocating. The figures loomed closer, no longer just shapes but entities craving what they had been denied. The leader's heart raced as he desperately scanned his friends, now neck-deep in fear, their faces washed pale under the eerie glow of the darkened shapes. Think. We have to fight back. He yelled, but his voice wavered, corroded by doubt. The gaunt man shrieked again, his fingers clawing at the air, willing the shadows to retreat. They thrive on our terror. Use your memories against them. Memories. The leader's mind raced back to times of laughter, joy, a childhood spent under the sun, the warmth of friendship. But every fleeting thought was viciously assaulted by chilling shadows that crept from the corners of the cabin. Gripping the back of a chair, he hurled it towards the portal, desperate to shatter the dark enchantment. Help me remember. He shouted, desperation igniting the spark of hope in him. With feverish intensity, he turned to his friends, pulling them into focus. Remember the time we camped by the lake? The stars we saw? The campfire stories? As if pulled by the strings of an unseen puppeteer, they began to murmur, voices trembling under the weight of fear. The stars, they were beautiful, one whispered, the flicker of a smile ghosting her lips. Yes. That's it. He pressed on. Keep that memory alive. They can't take what we cherish. But the creatures were relentless. The dark figure slithered forward, and a second shadow fanned out like smoke. You believe you can resist? Its voice slithered like a poison, chilling them deeper than the frost outside. The leader felt his resolve wavering, but he pushed through. He grabbed a friend's arm, anchoring them mightily. No. We fight together. One by one, the group began to claw their way back from the brink, stitching together shared memories, the laughter, the victories, even the quiet moments of solace. The cacophony of their voices formed a chorus against the consuming darkness. Believe. They shouted in unison, feelings anew weaving a shield against the suffocating dread. Then, as if properly summoned, a brilliant light burst forth from the center of their circle, the memories glowing like embers. The dark figures shrieked, shrill and agonized. They recoiled, shadows snapping back in terror from the purity of warmth radiating within the group, but the creature's eyes widened, an abyss opening within its gaze. You may have momentarily distracted me, it hissed, but a note of fury crept into its voice, but I will have what I need. The game has just begun. Suddenly, the world spun. The floor dropped like a trapdoor beneath them, the walls dissolving into wisps of darkness. Gravity crumpled, and with it, the firm ground they stood on evaporated into the void beneath. The leader's heart thundered in his chest. Hold on to each other. He yelled, grasping his friends' hands as they spiraled into the swirling dark. As they fell, the memories they conjured mixed with the shadows, but the light fought to stay alive within their grasp. The descent seemed endless. Faces twisted in anguish flashed by, wretched visages trapped within the folds of the shadowy realm. The silence was punctuated only by the echoing laughter of the dark figures, mingling with their best memories, twisting joy into despair. Then suddenly, they landed hard on solid ground, faces smacking against the cold, damp earth. They gasped as they scrambled to their feet, dazed and breathless. But where were they? What barren land had they plunged into? The darkness loomed, and as they turned to face the perilous horizon, their breath stilled with horror. Before them lay an expanse of grey mist and skeletal trees, branches clawing at the sky. The ground was littered with remnants of past players, faces frozen in terror, eyes wide with endless despair. "Is this what they meant by a game?" whispered one friend, pale and trembling. But the leader knew they couldn't give in. They had to navigate this nightmarish realm or risk becoming yet another memory captured in the eternal struggle between light and darkness. What other horrors awaited them in this desolate land? Would their shared memories be enough to forge a path through the shadows, or was it already too late? The haunting laughter echoed once again, filling the air as the new game began to unfold around them. A chill slithered down the leader's spine, sending a shudder through his body. They stood in the suffocating silence, surrounded by the twisted remnants of lost souls. "Keep moving," he urged, pushing his friends forward as if sheer will could anchor them to safety. Each step crunched against the brittle ground, the sound echoing like a death knell across the desolation. The skeletal trees loomed around them, their gnarled branches like bony fingers reaching for escape. Shadows danced between the trunks, taunting them, waiting for them to falter. "Do you hear that?" one friend asked, her voice trembling like a leaf caught in a storm. The leader paused, straining to catch the distant noise. A soft, eerie tune floated through the air, enchanting yet sinister, like a lullaby wielded by the wicked. "Stay close," he commanded, gripping tighter to the hands of those near him. They had to resist, but doubt was gnawing at them. Each footfall was agonizingly slow, the weight of their fate hanging in the balance. As the melody wrapped around them, memories started to bubble to the surface, images from the past trying to seep into the present. The laughter of children, sunny days, sweet smells of home-cooked meals, each moment was a beacon in the dark. "Remember your moments of joy," the leader cried out, hoping to reignite the spark within them. "We can face this together." Together, they echoed, a faint glimmer igniting behind fearful eyes, but the shadows were crafty. They shifted closer, whispering secrets of despair that echoed like wind in an abandoned town. "You think your memories bind you together," a shadow hissed, its form twisting, "but here you will only find solitude." One of the friends, a boy with wild curls, trembled as his voice broke the fragile silence. "What if they're right? What if we can't stop?" The leader's voice boomed, louder than he intended. "If we doubt, we fall. We must keep believing." Sudden screams shattered the air without warning. They whirled around, searching frantically for the source. It came from behind a cluster of trees, a cacophony of pure horror. "Not again!" another friend gasped as they recalled the tortured faces they had encountered earlier. Panic surged again, threatening to crush any hope they had just regained. "Let us talk about it. Breathe," the leader urged, forcing calmness into the chaos. "Root yourselves in what made you strong. Remember why you're here." They took a deep breath together, fixing their focus on the lingering sounds of joy from their memories. A soft light flickered above them, shimmering as they whispered names of loved ones, stories of triumph and moments of laughter. Gradually the warm glow began to strengthen, illuminating a path through the dense fog. Slowly, the shadowy whispers retreated, their hisses fading into the air. The skeletal trees now appeared less menacing, their branches swaying as if joining in their retreat. Then, out of the mist, a figure emerged, pale and ethereal. The leader's breath caught in his throat, a mix of fear and awe. It was a ghostly girl, her face calm as she spoke. "You found strength within, but you must make a choice. Behind me lies the way out, but the cost is high." "Cost?" the leader echoed, dread settling in his stomach. Her eyes sparkled with the weight of unspoken truths. "You may lose what you cherish most." A heavy silence descended like a fog. They had fought to hold on to their memories, but what would it take to escape this nightmare? "Do we risk it?" one friend spoke, glancing at the leader for guidance. The shadows were stirring again, moving with a sense of urgency. They had to decide quickly. Would they have the bravery to move toward the ghost and whatever lay beyond, or would they remain trapped in the darkness forever? The leader opened his mouth to respond, but a thunderous roar erupted, shaking the ground beneath them, cutting off his words. In an instant, the mist thickened, lengths of shadow creeping back towards them with malicious intent. What now? Someone cried, panic clawing at their words. But the leader felt a fire ignite within. It was time to act, time to choose. Every second counted as the shadows closed in what lay ahead in this game, and what could they lose? One choice could break them, or perhaps, it could finally set them free. The leader's heart thundered in his chest, drowning out the chaos around him. The booming roar echoed strangely, like thunder mixed with the cries of the lost. He couldn't afford to hesitate now. Follow me. He shouted, gripping his friend's hands tighter. The ethereal girl, still hovering just ahead, looked back, her expression urging them forward. Her eyes shimmered with a strange light that promised release yet hinted at sacrifice. They took off, the crackling earth beneath their feet barely keeping up with the speed of their rising panic. A chorus of screams erupted again, more jarring this time, slicing through their thickening dread. Shadows darted beside them, twisting faces blending into the darkness. Run! The leader yelled, panic surging through them. Each footfall felt heavier, as if the ground itself was fighting to pull them down. The ghostly figure floated just ahead, illuminating a path that danced among the shadows, always just out of reach. Desperation clawed at his throat. They had to trust her. What if we lose each other? One of the friends gasped, glancing back as the ominous shadows writhed behind them. Focus! The leader shouted back, his voice raw with urgency. If we fall apart, we're done. The eerie music swelled into a crescendo, wrapping around them like a suffocating veil. Memories fought fiercely within, wrestling against the chilling reality of their circumstances. Behind them, the echoes of the shadows were cruel and mocking. You'll never escape, they whispered, cruel amusement lacing their words. Embrace the solitude. The leader's chest tightened with fear as he pushed onward. With a surge of will, he thought of home, of laughter, of warmth. We will not let them take us. Suddenly, the path ahead flickered like a dying light. The girl turned, her gaze intense, filled with an unnatural knowing. You must choose. She cried, her voice buoyed by urgency. What matters most to you? What will you sacrifice to save your friends? Do we need to give up someone? A friend stammered, eyes wide with horror, face pale against the darkness. Not necessarily, the leader replied, but doubt hung heavily in the air, thorny and unyielding. But I will not turn back without my friends. As if their resolve breathed life into the dimming path, the lights flickered again. The ground surged beneath them, the shadows pulsing as if alive, ready to engulf them whole. The leader turned back once again. There was no time for losing himself in the cries of despair. He grabbed another friend's hand, a firm hold to anchor both of them even as fear screeched over each heartbeat. Just keep moving. Trust in our bond. Before he could blink, a shadow lunged at them, snapping like a wolf closing in for the kill. The ghostly girl's eyes widened in alarm. Protect yourselves! She screamed. A blanket of shadowy limbs erupted toward them, reaching out with claw-like fingers, desperate to drag them back to the void. But the leader didn't waver. He swept his arm in front as if to shield his friends from the terrible grip of despair, feeling a surge of strength radiate in response. Fight! He barked. Don't let them take you. But as the shadows wove around them, a piercing scream erupted. One of his friends had stumbled. Time froze as the panic shone in their eyes. No! He shouted, but horror gripped his heart. Choose! The ghostly girl's voice rang in his ears, fierce yet urgent. Sacrifice now, or all will be lost. The shadows pressed closer, close enough for him to feel their icy breath on his skin. His choice loomed ahead, and the weight of his friends' lives rested on his shoulders. Would he plunge into the unknown, desperate and reckless? Or hedge his bets on their connection, risking it all? As the leader grappled with his decision, tearing at the fabric of hope, something deep within the darkness stirred. There was more to this haunting game than he realized. Time was slipping away, and as the grip around them tightened, a resonating truth emerged: sometimes, the only way to find light is to confront the darkest corners of the soul. What would he ultimately sacrifice to escape? Would the price turn out greater than he thought? A breathless silence enveloped them, interrupted only by the menacing laughter that seemed to seep from the shadows, wrapping around their throats like a noose. The leader grasped the shoulders of his friends tightly, their collective fear coiling in the pit of his stomach like a ravenous beast. It was now or never. The moment to act had arrived, and the haunting girl's words echoed relentlessly in his mind. Choose. She had insisted, urgency layered with a shroud of mystery. What true sacrifice could save them from falling into the depths of despair? As he stood before the shadows swirling like hunger incarnate, flashes of laughter and joy wove through his thoughts, shimmering against the encroaching darkness. It was a battle of wills, a tug-of-war between light and shadow, inside him and around him. I refuse to lose anyone else. He yelled, his voice rising in defiance, the shadows twisted and curled, ready to swallow them whole. You're fools, they hissed, foolish little lights in the blanketing dark. Optimism surged within him, energizing every fiber of his being. Not if we stand together, he implored, his friends' faces alight with a flicker of determination. Remember that night at Pine Lake? When we caught fireflies and made wishes? As he spoke, their bonds ignited, fueled by cherished memories that glimmered like constellations amidst the oppressive gloom. One by one, his friends seemed to awaken from the stasis of dread, their hearts thrumming with fresh hope. Yes. I remember. One of them exclaimed, eyes brightening as laughter bubbled to the surface. That night was magical. Another echoed, the color returning to her cheeks as the collective nostalgia wrapped them warmly. The shadows howled, real terror embedded in their furious yowls as the group drew together, every pulse of shared memory weaving an intangible shield radiating luminous warmth. Push back. The leader urged. Together. The strength of their memories melded into a force that drove the darkness away, if only for a heartbeat, but the shadows retaliated with a force like tidal waves crashing against shore, clawing at their resolve. They could almost feel the chill attempting to drag them into the depths again. Remember this. It thundered, voices melding into a cacophony of terror, your bonds mean nothing here. An unsettling rush of fear twisted again, aiming for the tender places in their hearts. Think. The leader shouted, drawing from every reserve of strength. Remember those we love. The warmth of our homes. The laughter of friends. Keep those memories alive. Eyes wide and desperate, his friends joined hands, their breaths synchronizing as they murmured the names of loved ones, their joys spilling forth like a torrent. Together, their voices rose louder, an anthem against the creeping shadows. We choose hope. The ground beneath them trembled, and pain surged through the shadows, causing them to writhe like creatures caught in a storm. Desperation echoed in the leader's heart, they were pushing back, but would it be enough? Then, for the briefest moment of clarity, he turned to the ghostly girl, who stood resolute, a beacon of ethereal hope against the dark. What do we do? He screamed against the growing chaos. How do we truly escape? Sacrifice. She called back, eyes radiant yet painful. Sacrifice what you cherish most. You will break the chain. Once more, the world charged with adrenaline, coiling tighter like a serpent ready to strike. Every one of his friends seemed to hesitate, frozen in the magnitude of the decision. Wait. Someone gasped. What will we lose? The memories rushed past, enveloping them, threatening to drown them again. Vivid pictures swirled around them as the darkness pulled at every thread. The leader felt terror swell within, a hurricane of uncertainty and regret. I can't lose you, he murmured softly to his friends, eyes wide, voice shaking. But then a kernel of strength surged through him. The ghostly girl's warning hadn't been empty. She understood. Together, we could shed fear as our armor, he declared fiercely, his heart pounding. I will sacrifice my fear. I will sacrifice my past to save you all. With a deep breath, he let go of the last threads binding him to that fear. Streamers of darkness pulled at his soul, trying to grip him, but he thrust forward into the obscuring light, toward the shimmering presence of the ghost. Follow me. He shouted, belief rooting him to the ground. We'll face it together. The shadows screeched, furious rage booming through the dark forest. Yet he felt strength pooling within him, a collective courage igniting like wildfire. His friends, inspired by the echoes of laughter and warmth, surged forward. This was a charge, a defiance against the cruelty lurking within the shadows. In that moment, the ground split apart, light bursting forth like dawn breaking the horizon. Together, they leaped forward bound by a shared purpose, fueled by joyful memories, intent on breaking the cycle, willing to let the warmth of their belief confront the icy grasp of terror. With one last cry, they thrust themselves into the light, collapsing into a blinding brilliance. The darkness screamed, furious and raw, twisting away into oblivion. They floated in the haze together like seeds caught in the wind. When the light faded and the air cleared, they suddenly found themselves back in the woods, standing under the welcoming embrace of the stars. Laughter filled the night air, and warmth enveloped them. Glancing around, they exchanged solemn gazes, the shadows of despair melting away with each heartbeat. We did it, one friend whispered, awe in her voice. Yes, but let us never forget, the leader replied, feeling the bond strengthen, a shared consciousness of their survival and a renewed appreciation for life. Resting side by side on the forest floor, hearts finally free from the burden of shadows, they knew they'd walked through hell and emerged together. Memories of joy intertwined with the darkness of their nightmarish journey. As the depths of night gave way to dawn's bright light, one flickering feeling spurred a new courage remained alive in each of them, linking heart to heart, endlessly unbroken by the stories that haunt the midnight hour. Regrets only the promise of tomorrow. Before they could even let the silence settle, a thought hit them. Hey! Did we really escape? Someone asked, the tension in the air palpable. The leader chuckled softly, yeah, but let us keep our guard. Struggles are always lurking around every corner. Suddenly filled with warmth and renewal, they held hands once more, looking up at the stars, shimmering bright overhead. These stars didn't just shine, they reminded them to cherish connection, warmth, and hope in whatever shadows lingered. Time passed gently on that beautiful dawn as they took a collective breath, their hearts now a little fuller, and hope soaring higher than ever before. And that's where their journey ends, or perhaps only begins anew. You need to subscribe now. Don't miss out on the next heart-pounding, unbelievable stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments with your reactions and theories about the twists of this tale. Instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second.